What is the most severe case of someone being completely out of touch with reality you've ever seen? The pastor of a small town church insisted that members set up the parish hall and provide food and beverages for 125 people after every Sunday service, even though the average attendance was only around 20 people. Week after week, month after month, much food would be disposed of and large urns of coffee dumped down the sink, and all because the pastor was in denial about the reality of weekly attendance. I will never forget the man who angrily told me, a wheelchair user with no feet and no prosthetics, to go down the stairs if I didn't want to wait for the elevator. I had been talking to my friend, and mentioned we were going to be a little late because of the huge line. Edit. Holy SH. I was not expecting this much of a response. Thank you everyone. There's so many comments, so I'll answer a few of the reoccurring ones here if that's okay. As far as I could tell, the guy wasn't blind. I know most of these comments were a joke, but there were a few that were asking genuinely. It's not impossible, you can't always tell, but he turned around and made direct eye contact with me, which indicated he at least realized I was 3 feet tall at the most, so I was either a little person or in a wheelchair, both of which probably shouldn't be using the stairs at that time. The stairs were like a stampede of people. It was the central city station in my city at peak hour, and it was busier than usual because of less trains at the time. Even if I had my prosthetics, I wouldn't not have been able to safely get down without being pushed over. Tone is hard to get across on text, so I understand the confusion there, but I made the comment to my friend simply to inform her we were late for work. I wasn't passive-aggressively trying to guilt people. I don't think I should get to cut in line or whatever. The tone I used was more we are running late, but what can you do? Before the guy interrupted, I was about to tell my friend I wouldn't mind if she went on ahead. Just some context. As for what the guy was thinking, no clue. There's a huge wheelchair sports program in that area, so people in wheelchairs are very common, and many are ambulatory wheelchair users, meaning they can walk for a little while, but not very well /safely for very long. It's very common for those people, and myself if I'm wearing my prosthetics and using my chair, to get hassled for faking it, so maybe that's what he was thinking. That I was somehow faking. Honestly, I have no idea. As I said before, he was looking right at me when he said it. What happened after was he glared at me for a few seconds. I was too surprised to say anything in return. He seemed to have a moment of realization and awkwardly turned back around to face the door. My friend and I had a good chuckle over it after he was out of earshot. Parents of a 35-year-old woman who was hospitalized after suffering severe anoxic brain damage 20 years ago. She had been in the same ward since, barely conscious. They refused to get her transferred to a more suitable facility for 20 years, saying that there's no reason to do so. Those facilities are for lost causes, and their daughter is going to make a full recovery, finish school, get married and be totally fine. Working in hospitals got me quite a collection of these stories, but this one I thought was one of the saddest ones. In college I had a roommate from the most sheltered part of Long Island. We met an exchange student from Switzerland, and I swear to God she said this in complete seriousness. Oh wow, I didn't know people actually lived in Switzerland. I thought there were just banks there. This was from a regional manager of Starbucks, after they removed merit-based raises that could go up to a 5% increase, changed to a flat 2% increase. When she asked if people liked the new raise plan, I said actually no, they feel unmotivated with no reason to perform any better than just normal. Regional manager, your staff need to realize working isn't about money. There is a girl at my work that always bitches about not making enough. She makes $200 to $300 a paycheck, then is always the first to leave early and always shows up late and has other PPL take her shifts. She asked me how I make $600 to $800 a paycheck. I said I work more. I'm currently at work taking over her shift. She doesn't realize if you don't work more you'll be paid less. My cousin was spoiled and sheltered her entire childhood through college. Then her parents stupidly cut the leash without any preparation and released her into society. She quickly got in trouble for bouncing checks all over town. My mom picked her up and asked why the hell she was writing bad checks everywhere. Turns out my cousin was under the impression that as long as you had checks in your checkbook, you had money in your account. She didn't understand that you deposit in a number and then can spend or withdraw up to that amount. Please teach your kids basic finance. Note: this was like 1996 before it turns into a who writes a check anymore discussion. My sister grew up with everything handed to her, and literally cried when her first car wasn't the color she wanted. Married rich. Can't fathom why I can take off work whenever it suits me, and says stuff like I wouldn't ask my boss for a week off. I would tell him I am taking the week off. Work with a girl who is a flat earther and on top of that denied the existence of space. When the topic came up and I disagreed, she asked if I had ever been there. Obviously I haven't. I told her I have also never been to Japan and that does not mean it doesn't exist. She complained to management about my intolerance of her beliefs. My parents paid for half the down payment on my house, pay for our landscaper, house cleaner, child daycare, car insurance, and give my wife and I a monthly allowance. We're completely self-sufficient human beings who even try and give other friends financial advice. Obviously written in the voice of someone I know. My old boss at the time was a girl of 26 who got $4 million from her mom a year to play with. Her mom is very wealthy in China. Her daughter is here trying to be a CEO of a company for funsies. I accidentally got a job at that company. One day she told us we were all going on a group outing for bonding. She took us to an outlet mall 4 hours away. Told the rest of us 7 people that she was going to go shop and see us later. That was code for don't follow me, fuckers. Every 2 hours she let us know she was going to go and load her bags to the giant van they rented and would group text us telling us we can meet her there to unload as well. We all get paid under 50k. We have nothing to unload. By lunch she had proceeded to fill up the van with shit. She then asks me where all my new stuff is and I said I'm budgeting right now. She goes take out a credit card and go shop. That's the American way. Seriously. Okay. By 9 p.m. her bags were taking up people's seats and they had to sit with her stuff. She spent 30k. The rest of us spent about 70. We were tired and bored and cold. To this day I still believe she thinks she did something nice for us, and doesn't understand how polarizing and not at all team bonding that was. Had a friend who insisted she was in a relationship with a C-list celebrity whom she met once during a comic convention. All the celebrity's Instagram and Twitter posts were for her and everything had a meaning behind it. When the celebrity got married, she said that it was just for the media so she and celebrity could live a quiet life. When he didn't do anything for her birthday, she had a breakdown. She went to therapy not long after. My step-grandma who called me a lazy useless loser because I was struggling to find a job after college back in 2009 when the economy was in the gutter. She called me every name you can possibly think of, but the most common phrase was dependent loser, since I had to move back in with my parents. This is the same woman who never had a job in her life and was supported 100% by my grandpa, and is now currently living off of his social security and pension. What a way to call the kettle black. My sister-in-law, kicked out by her boyfriend, comes to stay with us for a few days. We suggest looking for a flat/cheap house to rent near us. She won't live in the scummy part of town near us. She like a 3-bed house with garden in the best part of town. She has no savings and isn't sure if she has a job. Was a part-time cashier in a supermarket. Stopped going to work when COVID came. Note: not furloughed. Supermarket still open. She's just not going in. When I suggested maybe she couldn't afford 500k on a family home on her salary, she suggested she just get a council house, disregarding the huge waiting list and the fact that most council properties are either ghetto parts of town This is just the crust of a deep layer of unhinged fantasy world that she lives in. My parents. Neighbor thought that her garden was too small for her sons to play in. So when she met my parents for the first time, the first thing she actually said was, "Can you give me some of your garden so my sons have more space to play in?" Thankfully, my parents just said no. For context, they live in a very expensive neighborhood where houses cost on average from £750,000 to £1 million. The gardens in that neighborhood are a lot bigger on average than the majority of gardens in the Ark. I've never heard a story of somebody being as painfully out of touch as that woman. Edit. There's a lot of comments from Americans clarifying what our gardens actually are. A British garden is what you guys call a backyard. My stepbrother got into a weird Gnostic religious group and thought he could convert people by talking to them, harassing them, Socrates style, except without any ability to carry out a philosophical conversation. Also assuming workplace is a fine occasion to do this. When he'd get fired from his temp jobs, he'd assume it's a conspiracy and fight against enlightenment. This is more funny than deluded as a side note, but one of the group activities is to have to rewrite their religious book by hand, which he diligently did, and it wasn't a small book either. Turned out he used the wrong color ink, which for some reason invalidated the whole thing. Got a job in a restaurant as a waiter. Assumed for whatever unimaginable reason that the proper way to act for waiters is to bow after taking the order. When his supervisor asked him to stop, he lectured the supervisor on proper waitstaff manners. Wanted to propose to a 50-plus-year-old woman who has until then shown no signs of being interested in him. Luckily, he believed in the tradition to first ask father's permission, so he asked his dad, who talked him out of it. Had an idea to join the military to convert them from the inside. At one point believed the sun rays can sustain you, but luckily never really bothered to practice it. Is totally against capitalism and wants to live a free life as a wandering philosopher rather than live as a working drone like everyone else. However, does believe the working drones in his family should support his noble pursuit while also chastising them for selling out. And more. Subscribe, like and comment if you hate outros, begging you to subscribe, like and comment.